People almost have forgotten about Motorola. But now, unlike Nokia, they really try to come back. And I feel they can prove that smartphones deserve a place under the sun. It's not the first time I deal with a mobile phone from Motorola. I still have this C113 and it still works. I decided to buy a Motorola phone next time more than a year ago, because I don't really like how Xiaomi phones perform. Especially I don't like modified Android with tons of unnecessary applications. My mom just tired of her Redmi and asked me to choose any smartphone that works fast. So basically there's no need in high performance capabilities. I chose Motorola G05. Three things matter. It is cheap, it gives you more control, it comes with Android 15. New versions of Android are a huge problem. Because of them, some applications stop working on all devices. And the developers don't want to support all versions of Android. So I want this device to work as long as possible. Motorola G06 is almost the same phone. What's important for the tests is that both phones have same processor and same RAM type with same two options of 4 and 8 GB. I have 4 GB version, and I'm not sure that 8 GB RAM version exists. There are no such phones on our market. The official Motorola site provides no true info about RAM options. I'm not going to cover all the specifications and features of this smartphone. It is emulation tests. I will say some words about what I like or not in the end and maybe somewhere between the tests. Keep in mind I'm not really interested in smartphones in general. I don't buy a new one every year, so I may say something strange. I will compare this processor with Snapdragon 680 because I made a video with emulation tests of Redmi Pad SE. The results of those tests were not bad, and I expect this Helio G81 to be much worse. Also, this smartphone has only 4 GB RAM. Redmi Pad SE has 8. Let's start with PlayStation 2. Virtua Fighter 4. It really works badly. It wasn't perfect on Snapdragon 680, but it was more than just playable. Here you can play, but it's very uncomfortable. I cannot understand how built-in FPS counter works. It shows about 30 FPS, but at the same time the speed is 100%. I know it runs at 60. There are two general emulation settings, fast and safe and optimal safe. I tried both. It feels like optimal safe works a little bit better. Taking 4 runs at the same speed, sometimes faster. You can play if you want in cases when you don't have a real PS2 or other devices for nice emulation quality. The King of Fighters Maximum Impact Regulation A surprisingly works much better. I also tested Fighting Angels, because for some reason it doesn't run on the real PS2 console. So this ROM image is not damaged, I think. Maybe it is the console problem. The King of Fighters is still the best working game. PSP. What can go wrong with PSP emulation? It works almost on every device. Tekken 5 has no issues. At first I decided not to show PSP at all, but then I tried to test Street Fighter Alpha 3, because I know it doesn't work on every smartphone. And it seemed okay, but after some time it began randomly accelerating for a couple of seconds. FPS counter was showing about 55 at those moments. I couldn't find any option related to locking or limiting FPS. But what to limit when it drops? Only at one moment it increased to 65. Also, this game freezes occasionally. Dreamcast. Red Dream expectedly works well. The title scene of the King of Fighters 2002 freezes sometimes. But the game itself works smoothly. And SNK fighting games are the most demanding games on Dreamcast in my experience, if I use Red Dream. Capcom vs SNK 2 is also a demanding game, and it also works well. There is one problem. To reach the menu you should press 3 tiny dots in the right upper corner. And the display of this phone has rounded corners, too rounded, so it's really hard to press it. Sometimes it feels like the part of the right side of the display just doesn't show the whole image. Several pixels are cut off. It's not only about Red Dream emulation, it's the problem of the display. Not a big deal, but it may really annoy you in some cases. Sega Saturn. Surprisingly, Virtua Fighter 2 runs almost perfectly. Let me remind you that emulators mostly were developed to work with Qualcomm processors. By the way, I play using GPU tessellation option, which is not for MediaTek. Maybe it just doesn't work, but the emulator allows you to choose it. I don't know. Some of the developers don't even recommend playing on MediaTek CPUs. But here we see Yaba Sanshiro emulator works on MediaTek Helio G81 with only 4GB RAM and has no issues. But wait, for Dead or Alive. It runs at lower FPS, has a lot of sound freezes, but it's still playable. Vampire Savior has no issues. I tried to play it on PC, it doesn't work at all. I tried different emulators, including Yaba Sanshiro for Windows, tried different PCs, so I thought the game ROM was damaged. But it's not. I tried some options, it turned out you cannot use the original resolution. In general, Saturn emulation works much better than on Snapdragon 680. With 8GB RAM. I don't understand why. I used the same version of the emulator. It's just better. .3DS. At first I thought it's completely unplayable, because I used the same emulator that I used on Snapdragon 680. It was so-called nightly version. Its icon has the white background. But I found some different versions of Citra, and one of them, Citra MMJ, works much better. This MMJ version has some different builds. I chose N22 build. Its icon has the orange background. It makes the system think that test is running, so the system tries to show the best performance. I don't know if it's true or not, but I like the idea. Dead or Alive Dimensions is not the best choice. Emulation is very unstable. But you can play if you really want to. Metroid Samus Returns works without any issues. GameCube. Playing Bloody Roar 3 is very uncomfortable. I don't recommend. The main problem is the sound. It runs at very low FPS, but the graphics is smooth. It is a quite heavy game for emulation. Xbox version runs very slowly too. So other games perform better. Buffy, for example. It's not perfect, but more than just playable.
Training graphics. Press the punch and kick buttons to counter your attacker. Or the defend button for an effective defense against attacking vampires.
Luigi's Mansion freezes occasionally, but works well in general. Switch. I tested Metroid Dread. The game launches, but it doesn't work. You can hear music and read texts, but there is no graphics. What else can I say about this Motorola? It looks like any other smartphone. They all look the same nowadays. You may think it has two cameras, but the second one is fake. Look at the center. There is no lens. You can put a finger on it and switch between cameras and camera application. Choose any mode, and every time it can see everything. It's really stupid. The frontal camera is mounted right in the display. I don't like it. There is only one visible speaker, but the sound works in stereo. On the opposite side there is a Dolby Atmos inscription, and the left sound channel goes out right through this side wall, where the inscription is. I thought the sound goes out of mini jack output. No, through the side wall. When I was adjusting the phone after setting to the factory settings, it recommended turning on the overcharge protection. You can read what it is on your screens right now. I've heard about such option before, but never used it by myself. It's interesting, not really useful, but I decided to test it. The test will take years. So there's nothing I can say now. What I really like about this phone is that it allows you to disable almost every background running application, excluding Google Play Store. I really hate it. It just continues to work by itself. Xiaomi phones don't allow you to do that. About prices. I bought this phone used at a pawn shop for $25. The condition is close to perfect. Average price for used G05 or G06 phones is $80, and the price of brand new phones at local stores is $160 for 4 GB RAM and 256 GB storage. 64 GB version is much cheaper. As for G05, the box includes a screen protector and a back cover, but I bought only a smartphone. It was really hard to find a cover for Motorola in my city. I found it by myself at one outlet. Why by myself? Because the girl who worked there didn't even know they sell covers for Motorola. And they have covers for all Motorola models. And she didn't know that. I just stayed to look through the showcase and saw G05 sticker. This sticker. And then I noticed there was the whole row of Motorola covers. A huge amount for each model, different colors. It wasn't cheap, $3. Look, Santa Barbara. Do you remember that never-ending TV show? Well, some people believe it still goes on. I think it's some kind of advertisement, because I've seen hand watches of the same brand, but in fact it is really Apollo and Racket Club. I don't believe they produce phone covers. A fellow in the next door outlet tried to assure me that I will never find a cover for Motorola. And I said, they have it, for all models. I think he didn't believe me. In fact, a lot of smartphones have the same dimensions. Only cutouts for a camera have different sizes and shapes. So there are always some options. I didn't waste my time for a screen protector, just bought the one that had close size. You can see the models it was made for. I don't recommend it. For G05, find some a little bit shorter. I think it fits for G06 because it's bigger. The price is $1. So in general I spent $29 and I feel like there's no big difference between 4 and 8 GB RAM. The slow CPU performs quite well, and it seems like Motorola works better than Xiaomi. It gives me control of applications. If I need a new smartphone, I'll think first about Motorola.